Hi, everyone. I think we're about to start. It's 1 minute past 12. There may still be a few people joining us, but we believe in punctuality and we want to get going. So I'm very pleased to present to you, or to introduce to you, Ansgar Papst. Ansgar is truly a citizen of the world. He has worked extensively in other countries. He's worked in South Africa as well as the Middle East and Europe, and indeed has studied in some of the most celebrated academic institutions. He's studied at INSEAD, at Harvard. He has an MBA, and Ansgar is going to take us through his thinking on disruption today. I'm sure we have a lot to learn, and I'm very pleased to hand over the presentation to Ansgar. Thanks, Ansgar.
Thank you, Hilton, and thank you to Omnicore to give me the opportunity to speak on my passion and to host this webinar. Thank you to the participants to show such a keen interest to join me on something that I'm truly excited about. In terms of the housekeeping, the presentation will be around 40 minutes. There will be ample time for Q's and A's towards the end. I want to encourage you to write your questions into the chat box. We gather these information and address them towards the end of the presentation. The reason why we go that way is because the different elements of the presentation are all interlinked, and it shows that many questions will get answered towards the later part of the presentation, and so therefore I think it makes sense that we use this approach. I would like to introduce myself. I have predominantly a retail background, but I have experience throughout other industries as well. As Hilton said, I'm originally from Europe. I know my German accent doesn't come through, but I have had the pleasure in living and working in Australia, in America, in the Middle East. So I have a fairly extended view of what's happening around the world. So disruption. I would like to start with a few thoughts, and before I introduce you to the methodology that we are going to follow throughout the presentation. And the biggest scholar really of disruptive innovation is a prof from Harvard called Professor Christensen, and his viewpoint is that disruption is almost always an opportunity before it becomes a threat. What does it mean? It does mean that there is a mindset for each and everyone to take whether opportunity is whether disruption is an opportunity or a threat. You will see companies from a same background, from a same industry, thriving or stagnating under disruption, and we really have to understand why is it that some companies turn disruption into an opportunity and the other one into a threat, and it will give you practical examples. The first message, the underlying message here of disruption is the following, that everyone is affected by disruption. Disruption will hit you sooner or later. The severity, the speed might be up for discussion, but even if you are far away from the disruptive coalface, which is basically the consumer, you will be disrupted. I strongly recommend to accept that as a fact. Okay, even if you're in an industry like construction or utilities or pharma or mining, and you're far away from the consumer's digital coalface, you still will be disrupted because the consumer is using Airbnb, is using Netflix, and is digitally exposed to all sorts of disruption, and their expectations will carry over to your industry. So the first message from Professor Christensen from Harvard is, you too, brute, will be disrupted. The second thing is really the following: that it's in your power, it is in your hands how to deal with disruption. It is really in your mind and the mind of your organization, whether you see disruption as an opportunity, and then you have to disrupt yourself, or you see it as a threat and you get disrupted. So the question is really very, very, very simple. In the face of disruption, do you take action or don't you take action? That's really as simple as it is. And I want to give you two examples. The first example is here in South Africa, game. And I'm turning back the dial to 2014. I was head of TVs for Southern Africa for Samsung. And at the time, game with the traditional brick and mortar product and price proposition was selling around 25,000 TVs to F&B's 500 TVs. So there was a 50x higher sellout on TVs for game as opposed to F&B. We then decided to see whether there is disruption in the value proposition. So instead of the traditional brick and mortar product and price proposition, we created a promotion where we turned the table and said, listen, here are two TVs and every retailer is selling at product and price with exception of F&B. That way we wanted to highlight what value the disruptive proposition at the time, affordability and online, carries compared to the traditional proposition. Were we able to disrupt the customer just by meeting his and her requirements? And the swing was quite remarkable. So instead of game outselling F&B 50 by a factor of 50x, F&B over that weekend on these two models outsold game by 5x. That's a 250 times swing. So we managed, and that's my claim to fame, I managed to basically crash down the telephone center, the telephone office of F&B because they were completely inundated with TVs. So we sold over that weekend nearly 2,500 TVs just on F&B, and that was 10 years ago. Online wasn't at the same level, nor was the affordability proposition. So this is an example how. So let me go back. Sorry, that's an example. We obviously highlighted that to Game. Okay, the leadership, the CEO of Game, and they did not take immediate action. Okay, and I think it's fair to say that they are beyond the cliff in terms of recovery. And I think that's my personal opinion. I was part of a retail company that was about to acquire Game, and we were advised there's no prospect of recovery. So 10 years ago, there was the sign that you get disrupted. Another company you're probably familiar with is Lego from Denmark. They struggled really. So they struggled really in the early years of the new millennium with sales. 2003, 2004, 2005. They were not really doing that well. But they decided to disrupt themselves. So they moved from a traditional toy company to a new global digital brand. They embraced collaboration. They transformed digitally. They introduced product lines, and you see this sort of growth rates of 10x you normally see with tech companies and not necessarily with plastic toy companies. With regard to the methodology, the starting point is really your acceptance that disruption is happening. Okay, and right now you're not doing anything or not doing enough. I'm taking you in the next 30 minutes through a journey of 6 subcategories, of 6 elements that hopefully will allow you to take a decision to take action. and to make and convert disruption into an opportunity and not a threat. And we don't have to go through all the elements right now. We're going to go through it one by one. Starting with the first element, disruptive innovation. The funny thing is that almost all executives know that innovation is the key for growth. Okay? Yet many executives are very unhappy with the performance of innovation. And that obviously leads to the questions, why are people in South Africa and elsewhere in the world do not innovate? And I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense if we understand the definition of innovation. And many people understand innovation as a bigger packaging size or an extension of a current product range or service offering. Okay, what innovation is? It's basically generating profit from new business models, and to get there quicker and more cost efficiently than your competitor. I think that's a wonderful translation or interpretation of innovation. It's about generating new business models that delivers profit in a quicker and more efficient way than your competitor. I want to quickly explain to you the basic concept of disruptive innovation as per Professor Christensen with the South African translation, if you like. I would like you to follow the right line, the red line, and this is really consumer expectations over a period of time. Okay, you guys probably would have expected one airbag 20 years ago, a second airbag 15 years ago, and now you expect 6 or 8 or 10 airbags. So these are consumer expectations over time. The market leader is the green line, okay? And the market leader offers a range, products, and there are some parts where the market leader offers products that constitute a performance surplus. We call you are offering the consumer features that the consumer is not willing to absorb. So, for example, Samsung offers an HDMI offers 8 HDMI ports on a TV. You only need 1 or 2. That's an example of an overserved customer. Okay, and on the other side, there's also consumer expectations that are higher than what the consumer actually expects. So they don't know what they don't know. A typical example here in South Africa is Checkers 6060. When they introduced in 2020 6060, no one knew that they need a 1 hour sort of delivery service. Okay, so it was an underserved consumer that they were that they addressed. On the other side, DSTV is a typical example. DSTV knows that 92% of their customers of the premium bouquet are watching the programs 101 and 3 super sport channels, and yet they offer you a bouquet of 160, 170 channels that the customer doesn't really want to absorb. And that's why that's an overserved customer. And that's why DSTV will be disrupted. And on the left hand, that's why Pick and Pay was disrupted. There are a couple of examples overseas, and some fun facts that you guys actually don't know. Starting with Kodak. I don't know how many of you know that Kodak had, at the time they got disrupted, the highest number of patents for digital photography. The only reason they survived the disruption is because they had they're generating revenues through the royalties from their patents. But think about it. They knew that digital would disrupt analog, but they decided not to do anything about it because their revenue streams were too rich. Okay, so they decided not to do it. The same with Blockbuster. Netflix was offered to Blockbuster for $50 million. Blockbuster also knew that the customers hated the late penalty fees for returning your DVD or video late. They knew it, but it was too rich, too comfortable, and they were too fat and lazy to do something about it. They decided tacitly to get disrupted as opposed to disrupt themselves. They chose the comfortable now and sacrifice the future. And the same can be said about VW. Okay, VW is one of the few companies that get disrupted on the left by Tesla, and that's called new market creation disruption, like the electric vehicle. And on the right, they were trying to target the most profitable customers. Okay, and they got undercut by the Koreans, and the Koreans are now undercut by the Chinese. And the Chinese also lift the price level now, and they will be undercut in the next 1 or 2 years by the Indians. Mark my words. So this gives you an idea about disruptive innovation. Okay, how much can you, what do you offer, and where do you want to play? Okay, business model design thinking. I don't want to spend too much time here because it's a webinar and more on its own. The thing really that I would like to highlight is there's a big difference between linear business, okay, and platform business. So linear business, you push almost like water through a pipe. It's also called a pipeline business, okay? And a supplier supplies a manufacturer, the manufacturer distributor, the distributor a retailer, etc. And the same can also be said about healthcare or steel production. There is a linear chain, a pipeline of value creation. And the platform is obviously where you connect one to the other. Okay, so the biggest hotel chain, Airbnb, does not own any beds. The biggest media company, Facebook, does not own any assets. Okay, the biggest transportation company, Uber, does not own any taxis. Okay, so that's really connecting the one with the other. So if you want to get started, a good starting point is always the business model canvas by Alex Osterwald and the Strategizer crowd. And the lovely thing with the business model canvas, it allows you to zoom in, i.e. the value proposition of your customer and how you satisfy them, and you zoom out as an environmental map where you can see the external influences. Okay, so that's business model thinking that you need to be aware of. The next thing I would like to highlight is XaaS subscription. That means everything as a service. So product as a service fuses really products with services. And instead of owning a product, you simply have the right to use the product. And there are gazillions of examples in the worldwide and locally, where the product was replaced by a subscription. I think you all remember how Microsoft, you were selling literally the DVD, okay, to basically upload the new Microsoft as a Microsoft version, and it was like a once-off cost. It's now really a subscription. So it is disownership. So disownership is a new normal, and it's nothing new. I want to introduce you to a case study from, I think, 1962. Rolls-Royce, the engine manufacturer, was not selling anymore. They decided not to sell the engines directly to the aircraft manufacturers, but to bypass or disintermediate the aircraft manufacturer and go to the consumer, in that case the airlines, okay, and saying, listen, instead of selling an engine with certain performance criteria, I sell you the faultless use of an engine. And it is more than 50. It's more than 60 years old right now, and it's a new standard. So subscription already happened 60 years ago, or started to happen 60 years ago. And something very, very important, now bringing it back to South Africa again. So there's a traditional business model, which is, here's a product, give me a price. What does it mean? It's a once-off transaction, okay? And once the customer has used this product, you have to fight for the same customer again. So there's no loyalty. And I want to give the example of a laptop. Laptops, by and large, are sold in retail to a customer, and the customer has to pay 10,000 rand. So the retailer gets the economic benefit, or the brand gets the economic benefit, but the consumer has to use the economic benefit or generate or absorbs the economic benefit over a period of time. So I always refer to it also as the second-hand car salesman syndrome. You understand when you buy a car from a second-hand car salesperson, it's great service, and as soon as you pay it, nothing, he's gone. Here, on the other side, on the subscription side, it is more like a product as a service. You get a 20, 25, 30,000 rand phone perceived for free, and every month you pay 1,000 rand. So the economic value for the tech company is aligned to the economic value of what you are using. And that is single-handedly the biggest reason for the difference in market penetration between laptops and cell phones. I tried to show it in a way that simplifies it. Okay, so if you have a product or a service that you sell at a price, you need to convert the cash deal, so to speak, into a credit deal. So you can see it as a can opener. Why a can opener? Because now this product or service is not the once-off costs, but it's now a subscription. And once you have the subscription, you can build blocks onto it, almost like a Lego tower. Value-added services, content, installation, insurances, technical services. So your subscription will be added now by those services. So you convert literally from economy of scale, moving products at a price, to economy of scope. You can attach more value, play a more significant part in your customer's life. So think about subscription as a can opener and the Lego tower, if that makes sense. That's probably the biggest block, and I would like to spend a little bit time there. It's the cultural and organizational ambidexterity. It's a mouthful, but I would like to really spend a little bit of time there. Look, if you accept that you get disrupted, what it means is you accept that your business model is finite. Okay? So your entire resource allocation model, Harvard calls it the resource allocation model, is all aligned to exploit your current business model. You exploit the now. Okay? If I'm as a manager have one telephone call to be made, to secure the half year or the year-end results, will I phone my traditional supplier, or will I phone a startup who has a big, promising future, but hasn't proven its business model? You gravitate almost by an invisible hand to a current traditional business model. The words that come to mind: fixed mindset. We don't want to be disrupted. Okay, it's all about scale. It's a pipeline business. Okay, it's economy of scale. It's driving efficiency, productivity. Okay. On the other hand, there's the new. You explore the new. You don't know what you don't know. Township economy, for example. Okay, 900 billion rand opportunities. 70% of our consumers live in townships. Okay, so obviously that is a future. But try to have a discussion with a supplier or retailer to to basically serve the township. It's hostile. It's different. You don't know. It is messy. Prahalat, another Harvard scholar, calls it the hostile infrastructure. Maybe you can relate to that. It's hostile. It's not clean business. They want to pay cash, then smaller packaging sizes. They don't have this, they don't have that. It's not geared up to our current business model. And as long as you try to use your existing model and plug a change to develop a new business model, you fail. It is a complete different business model. And it makes sense to take a step back. So how do you actually ensure that your people in your organization see innovation as an opportunities? They see, wow, there's change. Let's do it. Let's go for it. Let's go for it. If we do this and this, we can disrupt this and this. It turns out only 1 in 9 people in the organization on average have that mindset. The vast majority, 85, 90%, see innovation or disruption more as a threat. And that's called a fixed mindset. Okay. We call it, tongue in cheek, we call the people compliance herder. Okay. Because there's always like, don't do this, don't do that, and is that regulation. And I'm not being critical, right? Because they're paid to do that. Okay. So it's not really the individual. Okay. It took me 5 or 10 years of a lot of frustration to deal with this middle management. We also call it thermofrost, right? Because you can't penetrate it. But they're actually your biggest ally if you understand why they act the way they act. Okay. The problem is a different one. The problem is really that there's 3 key requirements for innovation and ambidexterity are not met. And so you cannot go to an individual, to compliance carer, and be cross with her. It starts with the leadership support, okay? A CEO who lives, breathes, eats innovation and disruption. A leader who does not hold with the first element of problem, with the first, if they face some headwinds, okay? And that normally a leader says, I want to do innovation. And then when you don't deliver right away, you said, okay, where will it be? Where will we cut the costs? And if your innovation practice is the first department to cut costs, you don't have the right leader that drives that drives innovation and disruption. Leadership support is absolutely crucial. Then it is the organizational design. Do we actually create space and structure? Do we ring fence resources, okay, to develop innovation and disruption? One wonderful example is Robert Bosch Automotive Parts in Germany. They have decided, wow, disruption is happening in automotive industry. We take 14 of our best people and create a Robert Bosch B company. And their mandate is, you have access to our database, to our infrastructure, okay, to our customers. Disrupt us. If you disrupt us, we, Robert Bosch A, folds into Robert Bosch B, and if not, we learn so much and you come back to us. Okay, so that's really the level of support that is required to take innovation seriously. And if there's one concept that I would like you to take home, it's a concept from Tendai Vicky. He's a Zimbabwean, now US-based consultant, and he developed the concept of pirates in the Navy, which is the crux of entrepreneurship. So how do you create entrepreneurs inside a corporation? You want to have the agility, but you want also to leverage the firepower. Firepower meaning funds, meaning customers, meaning infrastructure, meaning overhead support. And this is really a book. The link is here. The link of the YouTube video is here, and it is an open source book. latest thinking, really, from Harvard. I mean, this comes from it's this month's edition of Harvard Business Review. What is a legacy firm's guide to innovation? And you will see that this is really what we have said before: leadership support, organizational design, and having an innovation practice. Okay, so you first have to explore. You find your startups. Okay, but that starts between your ears, right? If you think that you're bulletproof and disruption doesn't hit you, right? Then this is already the beginning of the end. Okay, so you need to set up multiple partnerships. That's very important because you cannot go backwards and say, this is our business model, that's our investment, and that's our return on investment. You need to have what we call a portfolio approach of 10 possible partnerships or 10 projects. And 7 of these projects, you have to accept it that 7 of the projects will not work. 2 will wash their face and 1 will pay for the show. But the thing is, you don't know beforehand which one of the 10 will deliver, of course. So you need to have an idea. You need to get support from the CFO in the third step. And that's really the entrepreneurial CFO. I had problem to grasp the concept because the CFOs that I have known, they were penny crunches, okay? And to go to a CFO and say, we have 10 projects and really 7 don't work, but we need funds. That's a challenge. So you need to you need to make the CFO your direct stakeholder, and you need to put an entrepreneur in charge to develop the new business. This is an open source a project-led innovation tool, which I absolutely love. Why do I love it? Because it's cyclical, it's structural, it's strategic. It basically breaks down the innovation process into 6 big questions, from strategy to analysis to ideation to concept generation to evaluation to implementation to review. So you have a complete cyclical way. It is super popular for German Mittelstand. So the medium-sized companies in the German-speaking Europe. So Austria, Switzerland, Germany, etc. That's developed by a prof in Graz in Austria, and it is one of the underutilized tools. It's not like that the thinking is not there. It's the mindset of the companies wanting to implement it, if that makes sense. And here's a little funny story that hopefully explains to you what the issue is of cultural ambidexterity. I left Pick n Pay 5 months ago. And I had discussions 1.5 years ago with the people behind Timo, and we had the opportunity to bring Timo into South Africa under the name of Pick n Pay. So the entire supply chain was handled by Timo, and we just gave our name and we got a certain percentage. It was presented to the board, Sean, etc., etc. Or it was presented. It was the time before Sean. Sorry, it was presented to the board. And there was absolutely no traction. The idea was, but we have our stores. Okay, why don't you invest your time to bring people into the stores, right? And this is obviously that there you understand what the challenge is between brands and companies that see disruption as an opportunity and brands that see disruption as a threat. And you as an individual, you need to decide whether you want to spend your time with a company that is aligned or not misaligned to your views. There's the next point is O2O. It means offline to online, online to offline. It's a real retail-centric way, and I don't want to spend a lot of time, but the long and short is really that the way you communicate with your customers need to be flexible. can be you need to allow your customers to basically interact and communicate and trade with you, whatever it may be, in a way that he or she feels comfortable with. Okay, and there are different ways of how you bring the customer in store onto online and online customers into the stores. The one element that I managed to get off the ground was the take a lot pickup points in Pick and Pay. So there's really an example of how we use the online traffic into store, and enrich really customers' life. We are now, I think, on 12, and not we, Pick and Pay now is on 12 take a lot pickup points, and it will go to 40 points. But quite frankly, we should be already at 150 or 200 points right now, and you see that's the obvious thing that's happening in America already for 5 or 10 years. So I cannot claim that it was my idea. It was just like, listen, what's happening elsewhere, bring it over to South Africa, and you see it's just the speed of execution. Okay, that brings me to the reason why I'm in South Africa. I love South Africa because you can bring latest global thinking with local relevance to market. And there are some wonderful examples of startups, of explorative business models that are really, really doing well in South Africa. And there are some categories, some verticals in the South African economy which are much, much more dynamic and progressive than, for example, my home country, Germany. For example, healthcare. So there you can consult telehealth, consult with your nurse and doctor. It appeals to people that feel they are overcharged with the traditional medical insurances. There's 9 million people that have a medical insurance. They feel they're overcharged, but it also appeals to the 47 million people that want to have, that are not insured, and they want to have access to affordable quality healthcare. So that's a wonderful example. I thought that I want to share you. The other thing is a new cell phone network, a cellular network called Melon, which is a mobile virtual network operator on the back of the MTN network. And what we are doing is we are developing a program to create a retail chain of hundreds of the containers, biz boxes that you probably know from We Buy Cars, etc., and give Black women 100% ownership after a period of 3 or 4 years. So we create a retail chain out of nothing, and transform the society, uplift the communities. And this is something that's much easier to do here than elsewhere. That brings us now to action. Let us check the time. We have now we have 5 more minutes to go. So what do you do now with all this with all this knowledge? Okay, disruption is really about swallowing the fish. That's an analogy used by the American crowd called TSIA. It really highlights the reality that your costs are growing quicker than your revenues. So you have a gap between costs and revenues, and really you need to reverse it, right? And you have to swallow the fish. I like that quite a bit, because I think everyone can associate, look, my costs are running away and revenues is not coming. Okay, so how do we do that? So to my mind, there are 4 options. The first option that I clearly not recommend is not doing anything, inactivity. It will erode your profitability. It will ultimately close your business. Okay. There are too many examples. Okay. The other thing is develop it in-house. Okay. That's a journey that you should start regardless. But you need to understand the main problem is not anything other than how do you change the culture, the mindset of the people within your organization. Okay, so it's not a matter of basically creating a department. Let's say 5 people. I have some puff bags, some football table, and some comfy chairs, and that makes it that will help you on the disruption journey. It's not going to happen that way. You can also acquire a company. Okay. That comes obviously with CapEx requirements and a possible culture clash. And what I have done, coming from the environment of knowing why it's not going to happen in big corporates, I've created a value proposition called Entrepreneur in Residence as a Service. So I'm clearly eating what you cook, as a service, where you can basically hire an entrepreneur like me, but as a service. That means if you do not perform or if you don't get value out of it, you can kick out without a 6 months or 12 months retainer. It is month by month. So we align really the economic value that you get out of it with the economic value that my company and I get out of it. That's basically it. If you like the thinking and the approach, you're not alone, because there are many companies around there that touched my life, and hopefully I touched them in a little way all over the world. And I think it's a diversity. It's really the diversity that makes it really stick. Sorry, and that's really me for the day. I think we're good with the time, Colleen. David,
Yes, well,
we can now have question time, if you guys want
great.
to.
Thank you. That was amazing. Thank you so much for all the relevant examples that bring it to life for us in a practical way. Any questions? Pop them in the chat. I think we are on mute, so I would need to see the questions to get some comments from Ansgar. Also, I might have to pick on someone. Maybe my question in the meantime is your thoughts on the anti-fragile philosophy of Nassim Taleb and disruption. Is it something that you can relate to?
Colleen, I'm not aware of that philosophy. So you
Okay.
you caught me out there.
Okay, no, I think it is aligned. Hilton?
Yeah, thanks, Ansgar. I think that was both fascinating and inspiring. And so Omnicore thinks of itself as a innovative company. We in a continual phase of change. We developing things all the time. We listen, I think, closely to our customers, and we're an IT company. So, there's visceral change every cycle of IT where we take new things live and do things. But I do wonder if we're disruptive. And, is there a distinction that you would make between kind of organic innovation versus, the dramatic, big event disruption with a capital D that would, and I know the labels are not that important, but just, is there a case for organic innovation versus high-scale disruption?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and let me just open up this one slide again, because I think it was just very, very small, and we didn't spend too much time on that. As you can appreciate, there's a lot of thoughts being gone through. So so to answer your question, Hilton, yes, there is a difference between incremental innovation, progressive innovation, radical innovation, and different innovation, and basically project-based innovation. Okay, and that's why this tool allows you to basically go different routes, because it requires different ways of handling. It requires different ways of risk mitigation. It requires different ways of avoiding contamination with the current business model. So the blue part is really the blue half circle to the right is incremental organization. The yellow one is progressive innovation, and the red one is radical innovation. The top right at around 1 o'clock, there's a error out there saying, listen, if it's like sometimes you even have to externalize it, right? You have to externalize it because it's so radically different that you basically have a JV with someone that's basically what you call scale the edge. Okay, you scale the edge while you're continuing to drive your core business. Okay, so that's really the long and short of it. Depending where you are, depending whether you're, for example, the market leader, whether you're a legacy company. Okay, no, sorry, I take that back. I didn't mean market leader. The effect whether you are a legacy company or whether you're a new entrant makes it really, really different of how you approach it. Also, the access to the funds, and also, but having said that, the most innovative companies are not those with the deepest pockets. Quite often, out of the scarcity of funds, there's a lot of there comes out a lot of disruption and innovation.
Thank you. Is that you covered over there, Hilton?
Yeah, thank you. Fabulous.
David is asking, the subscription model, is that always the price model for disruption innovation?
I'm trying. Look, I need to think about it. So the reason why you do a subscription model is really to the overarching reason why you enter a subscription model is to maximize a customer lifetime value. Okay, and that can mean that you are quite prepared to invest something upfront if you know that you will generate profit further down the lines. Okay, so we can do this, the hook and bait approach. Okay, so if you buy this product as a loss, and if you add this high margin services to it, we'll blend it to a profit mix that is acceptable to us. Does that make sense? Did I answer the question?
David, does that make sense?
Yes, no, it does. It does. Yeah. But I just asking the other question is that, so, I mean, the subscription model, is that the disruptive model? If say, for instance, obviously like groceries, that's a price point. I suppose you could do a subscription model for groceries, but I mean, is that the thing? Is the disruption model only a subscription service, or can it be just a fixed price point?
To start the first part of the question, subscription versus product and price is a disruption model because it targets the customer which feels to be underserved. Okay, so you create almost a new market because you're not competing on price anymore. You're competing on other elements like convenience, like retention, loyalty, and achieving overall value out of that relationships. One example, what we have developed during my time at Pick n Pay. Sorry, it's again a retail example, but it gives you an idea. A fridge. Why do you sell a fridge just at a price? Okay, or at a price. What we then decided is to offer, or what we wanted to offer is, instead of selling a fridge, a DeFi fridge, we offer you cool food, cold food. So we converted the product and price proposition from a fridge to a subscription method that included a gift card every month to shop at Pick n Pay. Okay, so instead of a fridge, you bought chilled food as a solution. Okay, and you ensured them that over the finance period of 24 or 36 months, the customer either forfeited the gift card, which would be a 100% profit increase, or the customer would come back 24 or 36 times with all the side benefits of cross merchandising and picking up other products that would be then merchandised next to next to the next. It would be merchandised so the customer buys more.
Ah, thank you. That's
Matt?
a great analogy. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Matt, I'm glad you put your hand up. I usually pick on you. You're on mute. Oh, Matt is muted, David. Can you just type your question, Matt? Sorry, I think you're muted.
I've allowed the mic.
Oh, go for it, Matt.
Thank you,
Unmute.
because that was going to be a bit of an interesting way to try and do this. I think what I'm trying to wrap my mind around is that your version of disruptive innovation is not necessarily Kodak getting kicked out because Android came along. It's reframing the competitive position where, to your example, instead of selling the fridge, you get cold food on a regular basis. You might steal another market's market share. Am I correct in that thinking?
Yeah, correct. I would sign it off, Matt, right away.
It's very interesting.
It's really the approach. That it's clearly was widely available. So not related to that, but similar is so the U.S. Army, the SEALs or the U.S. Army, they have developed an approach called red team thinking. Okay, so that they basically challenge themselves to think like the enemy to disrupt them. So after the 9/11 attacks, they realized that if they would have taken the possibility of a 9/11 attack into consideration, there was enough evidence on the social media waves that they could have basically connected the dots. So they intercepted those chatter between the terrorists, if you want to call them, but they never connected the dots, right? Because it was beyond their realm of possibility that this would ever happen. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, right? With the benefit of hindsight, they could have. It was entirely preventable, and they used that for the second Iraq War. When they invaded Iraq, the second time, their casualties were much more lower because they red teamed their second invasion. Okay, so they had like this general, and they told the general, like Robert Bosch, you have access, you have knowledge of our weak points. Try to beat us. And you know what? He beat them. Okay, because he knew exactly where the fuel depots were, etc. They knew exactly the crucial part of the infrastructure. So they basically amended or fine-tuned their approach, and I think the casualties were reduced by 80 or 90%, something that way. So Messi, you're absolutely right. It's just like a mindset and an approach, right? It's a mindset and an approach. How to tackle things, and very often, Messi, you sit on the answer, you know the answer, but you don't ask the people that knows the answer. Okay, so and I think there's nothing different what Toyota has been doing since the 50s. I think. Why is the quality of Toyota better than of Japanese cars generally better than from other manufacturers? Because they accepted that the feedback you need is from the frontline workers. Okay, because they know what's wrong, what can be improved, what the pain points are, what you can do. So they introduced in the 50s already a system where you said, listen, if you propose innovation and we implement it, you get 10% of the savings or the profit we make with that innovation. They made a couple of millionaires that spread, and that's really more mindset. And I think that's the point I wanted to make.
Interesting. Ansgar Hilton's got his hand up. I guess that's going to be the last comment question.
Sorry, I don't want to hog the questions, but I didn't see any other hands up, so I thought it would be okay.
Boy, I hope I didn't miss any hands.
Ansgar, what I wanted to ask you is, I mean, obviously one of the most disruptive things that's happened in the last 2 or 3 years is OpenAI. just AI in general, generative LLMs, all those kind of things. And every business, I think, is wondering how to use that technology in some way to save costs, to speed up efficiencies. And I'm just wondering, from your own consulting practices, how much of the disruption that you're circling around incorporates AI technologies?
In 4 minutes.
Yeah, look, AI is one disruptor that I can see, but there are a handful of others. Okay, so I don't want to go actually into the specifics of AI. It is just a matter of taking action, doing, right, and testing, okay, and finding out. And it's a process of permanent experimentation. Okay, so the future researchers say that whoever sits in the home office and doing a job, and doing the job in the home office is potentially being replaceable by 2030. Okay, that's really, if you are not interacting with customers, if you're not creative, if you're not doing something which cannot be easily replaced by machines, okay, then you are potentially be replaced. Okay, so the knowledge is there. The knowledge is absolutely there. So the question is, what do you do with it? Do you take action, or do you see it as an opportunity, i.e., let's embrace it now, quicker and more cost effective than my competitors, so that I can bring a business model to the market that makes us profit? Okay, you remember the definition of innovation? Or are you saying, yo, we're gonna build moats and we're gonna build walls to protect ourselves? Okay, and that's really the fundamental question. And that's not only AI. That is really anything new you can think of.
Right. That's
Thank
a
you.
wonderful spot over there to say thank you so much for the very robust and engaging session, Ansgar. It was really lovely to learn from you today. And David will share the recording for anyone who wants to watch or share it. And thank you all for joining. It was wonderful to learn together.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And it was nice meeting you, even though it was through MS Teams. Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
Ansgar.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.